Welcome to Fintech Daydreaming, the podcast that dives into the world of banking technologies and the ever-changing landscape of fintech companies. We bring you real-life examples from global and local thought leaders, as well as experts working within the financial industry, and seek out the best stories from the front lines of financial services innovation, where dreams of industry pioneers meet reality. Hosted by Paul Krogdahl and Ville Sointu. This is Fintech Daydreaming.
Hello and welcome back to Fintech Daydreaming. I'm of course saying back because I trust that you are already a listener and subscriber to our fantastic podcast where we talk about all things fintech and banking, including very, very bad jokes. My name is Ville Sointu. I will be your host for today, for this episode where we're going to talk about regtech and regulation and law in the world of fintech, which is going to be a fantastically interesting episode. But before we get to all of that goodness, I of course need to introduce my co-host, my partner in fintech, not crime, but podcasting, Paul Krogdahl. Paul, how are you doing today?
Well, generally I'm doing okay, but as you can hear, I woke up with a bit of a sore throat this morning. So my voice is what I would categorize as sexy. Right?
That's what we call a whiskey treble or a whiskey bass.
I really wish it was, but unfortunately, no, not whiskey. You know, I made a decision over Christmas to follow this dry January process. So I haven't actually had a drink since Christmas Eve at all. I've been completely dry since then. And let's see how long that will last. But
so
maybe the whiskey would have prevented this. Who knows?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's this correlation causation question here. But anyway, let's get to it, and hopefully, Paul, you will feel better as the week moves forward. And of course, we hope that it's not the C disease that's been going around lately. But enough of that. Let's get to the content of the episode. And today we have a really interesting episode because it's one of the topics that I love to talk about. If you've listened to any of the stuff that we've been talking about in the previous episodes of Fintech Daydreaming, and that is, of course, regulation. Regulation and how technology can help in the domain of regulation, and how fintechs are approaching these topics. Hopefully we will get to all the meaty topics of crypto and DeFi as well as we move forward. But with that being all said, let's introduce the guest for today. So our guest today is Tony Petrov, who is the Chief Legal Officer at Sumsub. Tony, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine. Hello. It's nice to be here with you and with Paul.
Great to have you with us. Maybe we start with a bit of an introduction, Tony. So tell our listeners, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm a Chief Legal Officer at Sumsub. This is the company that provides identity verification across different jurisdictions for regulated entities, for banks, financial institutions, newly emerging crypto companies, online businesses, booking services, whatever. So basically we do identity verification for any kinds of online businesses. This is what we do, and basically we do it in accordance with specific regulations. So we are specifically a regtech company. We are working for Europe, Asia, and now we are also more or less entering the American market, meaning both the North and South America. By background, I would say I'm an international lawyer. It was time when I basically was specialized in international law and specifically human rights. So my career has made a very interesting curve into fintech, into these new technologies. But actually, I would say that this background helps me a lot because I understand more how different jurisdictions work together, and how the human rights actually are also involved somehow, especially when it comes to data privacy, etc., etc.
Yeah, I actually find that really intriguing. I think the most of the really interesting people in financial technology actually do have a broad background, understanding different facets of human life and the society in order to understand what are we actually trying to do here in terms of making financial services better and more accessible to broader and broader populations, of course. But I feel like we have a really interesting conversation ahead of us. Like I said, we touch on regulation topics many times in our podcast, but we never actually had a chief legal officer before. So I'm really looking forward to this. But we do have one thing we have to get out of the way before we get to the more serious part of the conversation. And that, of course, is the fact that we have started to ask our guests on the podcast to do a fintech or banking related joke starting last season. Now we will continue this a new tradition here in season 5, and therefore, Tony, I'm sure you have prepared for this already. But do you have a fintech joke, perhaps, for our listeners?
Well, it's more like a Regtech joke, but it's like a very short Billy Milligan type of a story. So let's imagine that John Smith is on trial for operating a darknet marketplace, selling whatever darknet stuff is, like drugs and contra killing requests, etc., etc. And so he's found innocent because he pled that it wasn't him, but it was his electronic identity.
Well, that actually is closer to reality than we might want to admit. Yeah, there's a version of that joke where you could say that, well, I didn't do anything because it was decentralized. But anyway,
yeah, it's decentralized. Yeah. This type of a joke.
Exactly. But thank you. I think our listeners actually love that joke, especially the ones who are listening now. Looking forward to all the Regtech conversation that we're gonna have now in the next half an hour or so. So thank you, Tony, for that.
Before we move on,
yeah.
Ville, I'm just thinking. I mean, Regtech. It's been an underlying theme in a lot of our episodes, but we've never actually defined what Regtech is for our listeners. I'm wondering if Tony maybe wouldn't mind just spending a couple of minutes off the bat here to position what is Regtech, how does that differ from fintech and big tech? Because these are terms that we are throwing around all the time, and I think it might be good for our listeners to have a concrete definition.
Agreed.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I would say, so fintech basically is financial technology. It's very simple. Regtech is regulatory technology or regulations plus technology. So basically the idea of Regtech is that when you have technologically different landscape in which you have technological companies doing different stuff, you need to, first of all, there are regulations that are coming into this landscape, and they regulate these entities, and then there have to be some companies, some entities that will help the players on this market to be compliant with these regulations. Mm-hmm. So, and obviously these regulations will be somehow implemented into technology. So if you do something in technology, then the regulations will be also implemented in technology, and so that's where the regulatory technologies are coming. There are various regulatory technologies right now related to especially databases in which you can check that the person is fine and he's not a criminal, etc., etc. And obviously, because there are many fraudsters and many people that are having some problems with the background and still have to want to somehow benefit from the economy, they are trying to defraud the systems, and so the new technologies are coming. And so this is basically Regtech. The Regtech help good businesses stay good businesses, not anyhow being related with people with bad background. Basically something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a good clarification for somebody who is what the Regtech is might not be a familiar term. And this actually come up with a follow-up question in terms of background and clarification, is that we talk a lot about regulation, and now we've defined that we use Regtech as a technical approach to comply to regulation. But the question that actually doesn't get asked that often is that why does regulation exist in the financial sector? I mean, we always talk about regulatory compliance and all how difficult it is and how much work you have to put into it. But I think the question that might be interesting to talk about here is that, again, why does regulation exist today? What's your opinion, Tony?
That's a very good question. That's an extremely good question, because if we go back, let's say, to 20th century, you will see that there are jurisdictions where you are allowed to have, for example, a company without showing any type of your identity. So basically, it's like like anonymous holding of any company. For example, Luxembourg was one of the places like that. Basically, you could just have an attorney holding your shares and voting for the shares based on the shares without disclosing your identity, for example. Or let's say this, Shawshank Redemption movie, where the person basically created an identity, right? And it was so simple at that time. You could just use posts and that's it. So this was the world, in 20th century. This ended basically with 9/11 events. At that time, the US started thinking about how to disclose the financial flows to terrorists. And that's where it started, basically. The FATF organization, which is the main, let's say, lighthouse for everything that is going on in different jurisdictions in terms of regulations, was predominantly based on this initiative to disclose terrorism and to prevent financing of terrorism. Right now, I would say that it's a bit different. So it's not just terrorism. I would say it's more like suppression of money laundering, because there's so many regimes in the world that are exporting dark money that are basically created, based on labor of very poor people living in these countries by the rulers of these regimes, and the civilized countries do not want this money, and so they want to suppress this dark money flowing from these countries. And also, of course, darknet has come into reality. This is something related already with the internet. So obviously, drugs and firearms and contract killing requests, etc., they are all sold through internet, through anonymous networks, etc., and this is all somehow operated and financed with some money. And so again, in order to suppress everything like that, you have to create a system in which everything is transparent. And so you don't have any countries right now, almost no countries, where you can have an anonymous account in a bank. And if you have this opportunity, then you will never have an opportunity to send this money to any civilized country and to use this money in the way you want it. So the bottom line is that all these regulations, they exist in order to make the financial flows more or less transparent. That's the only reason for that.
So the regulations really are predominantly there to combat illegal activity, criminals, rather than consumer protection, right? Because consumer protection is a secondary result based on.
Yes. If you look into the legal side of this question, all these requirements for disclosure and et cetera, the prohibition of anonymous accounts, etc., they are implemented in the anti-money laundering laws, which are designed to suppress terrorism, money laundering, etc., etc. Of course, consumer protection is very important as well. But yes, I would say it's a secondary consideration that is not included in these laws. But of course, I mean, if you don't have an anonymous service provider or whatever you have, a counterparty, obviously it's easier to request good quality of whatever services you have. That's clear.
So it sounds like the existence of regulation is based on the fact that we want to create, well, transparency, almost like at least a little bit more level playing field and a clear set of rules when it comes to financial services and movement of money. Is that a fair summarization?
Yes, it's a fair summarization. Unfortunately, I would say that all these regulations do not really attain the desired result, because money laundering is happening every day. It's tremendous amount of money. We cannot even imagine how much money is laundered every day. And the thing is that most of this money is not laundered through, like, let's say, small accounts of people that are suffering because of this AML regulations. They're all laundered by, let's say, large, I don't know, cryptocurrency exchanges or banks. I mean, if you look at the let's say whatever, at the Wikipedia, you will see that almost each bank, starting like with the largest banks, HSBC, Danske Bank, etc., they all have been recorded for money laundering. They all participated in money laundering at certain moment. This is the sad side of the story, that we're trying to fight money laundering on a small level, and people are suffering from this. But actually, what is happening is money laundering is taking place on another level.
So money laundering, which is basically trying to hide the origins of money,
yes.
Through the financial system, and then pretend or try to portray it like any other money, and put it back into the system for the benefit of the criminals themselves. Now, you mentioned cryptocurrencies here already, so I'm going to steer the conversation towards that direction a little bit, because it's an interesting topic. One of the things that we hear often said from the cryptocurrency space is that they want to replace this tough regulation and oversight with something that they say that we move from a world where you shouldn't do something wrong to where you cannot do anything wrong, because everything is transparent and cryptographically ensured. So the unrivaled transparency of the blockchain technology, where all the transactions are seen, well, at least in the Bitcoin blockchain, is often touted as the solution rather than a problem for the questions of money laundering and financial crime. However, we still hear about all these issues when it comes to know your customer identity, money laundering, terrorist financing, and often financial crime being associated with cryptocurrencies and blockchains. So why is that? I mean, it seems like these two narratives are a little bit contradicting.
The problem with cryptocurrency is that, yes, it's fully transparent in terms of transactions. Everyone can see the transaction of every wallet. It's very easy. You can just look at the website of specific, let's say, scanner of transactions of specific blockchain protocol, whatever. You can see these transactions. The problem is that you will see, instead of the name of the person, you will see the sequence of numbers and letters. And in no place you will have the opportunity to be sure that this specific wallet is belonging to this person. So the problem of cryptocurrency is, yes, it's transparent, but you cannot be sure that specific wallet belongs to the person. And legally, I would say it's almost impossible to be absolutely sure about this. Like we are trying, of course, in some cases to, let's say, prove ownership of the wallet to a specific person, but this is done, like I would say, in a very Stone Age way. Basically, just signing up a transaction from this wallet for, let's say, 1 cent, and because this transaction happened at this specific time, then or, for example, with specific phrase, as you can see, as you can do, for example, in Ether, in Ethereum, then you can then conclude that this wallet belongs to this person. But this is a very, I would say, it's not a very easy proof. So this is the main problem. Right now, the cryptocurrencies are required to collect, cryptocurrency companies are required to collect KYC information about their users, and then pass this information to whatever other cryptocurrency that will be on the way of the transaction. It is called the travel rule. And this sounds like a solution to this problem of anonymity of the wallet. But the problem is that there are what is called non-custodian wallets. These are wallets that are basically, just self-standing wallets that are created by the person, by customers themselves. And there's no cryptocurrency company that is responsible for this wallet, and no cryptocurrency company that will collect the KYC data from this wallet. And so this means that this wallet remains anonymous until the person shows that this wallet belongs to this person. But I mean, okay, the problem is that there are, I would say, maybe millions of these wallets already. You cannot just shut them down. They exist and they're anonymous. You see? And so obviously, okay, you made it, you forced the cryptocurrency companies to get licensed and to collect this KYC data. Will it help de-anonymize blockchain? I wouldn't say so, because there are so many non-custodial wallets that are still, let's say, spoiling this wonderful picture of different transactions, because every moment when the transaction goes through a non-custodian wallet, okay, this is spoiled transaction. So, and I'm not saying right now about mixers and cryptocurrency exchanges, etc., that basically also disrupting this good landscape with the situation where you cannot trace any transaction anymore. When a Bitcoin gets into Mixer, it basically disappears, and any other Bitcoins that are coming out, these are different Bitcoins. So it's a complicated thing, and that's the reason why there's such a big buzz about cryptocurrencies right now. Maybe you heard about what is going on in Estonia right now. Estonia has been a crypto hub, and so many companies have registered their companies in Estonia, especially because Estonia offered this e-residency cards. And now where are they? Where are these e-residency cards? Because what they basically right now did, they made all crypto companies get licensed with a very high level of fees and capital margins, etc. They are even larger than in some other jurisdictions. So the people that registered their companies in Estonia, basically they lost everything that they were thinking about when they registered the companies in Estonia. And then the reporting requirements are very, very high. And you have to demonstrate that you have specific connection to Estonia. And so my question is, where are these statements that you can do e-residency? You don't have to live in Estonia. You don't have to have any ties with Estonia and still operate the business in Estonia. It's fine. And now they say, now you have to prove the specific ties of your business with Estonia. So basically, this means that they are hosting all people that were getting this e-residency cards because of their businesses. They're hosting them out of the country. And I mean, okay, I understand this, that cryptocurrency business is a risky business right now, and obviously they have some pressure from, let's say, FATF and other countries of the European Union. But still, I would say it's quite harsh. But it shows to which extent right now the buzz is serious, and that nobody really has a good, 100% solution to the problem.
I'd like to jump back to your statement there of millions of anonymous crypto wallets. If I mean, Ville knows I don't see cryptocurrencies as being our main future, so I'm sitting on the fence very much when it comes to Bitcoin, etc.
Okay.
But you know, if you put on the Bitcoin hat and drink the Bitcoin Kool-Aid, the whole argument is the fact that Bitcoin is supposed to give you the anonymity that you get with cash. You know, your wallet in your back pocket is anonymous, right? And Bitcoin is supposed to give you that same level of anonymity. So isn't the issue you're bringing up actually one of the main design elements of Bitcoin in the first place?
Yes, that's true. Uh, I also think so. Obviously, probably. Obviously, half of the people are fans of Bitcoin. They're fans of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is becoming so much expensive. You can earn on investing in Bitcoin. Of course, another half is getting into Bitcoin because they need to let's say anonymize their transactions, but anonymize not in a way of basically doing some terrorist financing or let's say money laundering or anything like that. I would say most of them are trying just to minimize their tax. That's very simple. Or there's another reason for that, which is that the people don't have access to traditional banks. They don't have access to traditional finance economy. If you look into, for example, Latin America, in these countries of Latin America, most people are using cryptocurrencies just because they don't have access to traditional banking. So I wouldn't say that like 100% of the people, they are fans of Bitcoin because they want to hide their money because they're dirty money. No, most of them are doing this because it's just easier to transact in cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting picture we are painting here, is that there seems to be regulation. I mean, there are licenses that you can get as a cryptocurrency virtual asset service provider, for example, and there are payments. Some of them are getting payment service licenses and things like this, but it seems like it's quite scattered, and the licenses that the exchanges and service providers are saying that they are quote unquote regulated might not be that clear for maybe the users of those services, that what does that regulation actually mean. It seems like it's not like you're either fully regulated or you're not regulated. There's a spectrum of supervision there, and this leads to another angle to this same topics, is that laws by definition are defined by nation states, and they are enforced on national level. However, these cryptocurrencies and these networks and indeed financial crime is very much global. Even in the examples that we brought up now in the previous question was all around the world. We had examples from Latin America, Estonia, and other places, and all of these countries have different regulations or different laws, and indeed enforcement being local. But what do you think are the main differences between these regulatory schemes around the world? For example, based on your experience in Singapore, UK, Australia, and maybe even European Union with the upcoming crypto regulation?
I would say that maybe, let's say a year ago, I would say that in some of these countries, there's no license per se license for doing, let's say, crypto operations. And this is a gigantic plus and minus in one and the same one and the same situation, because it's plus because you don't have its costs related to licensing. At the same time, it's minus because the customers will be not very much sure that they're doing something with that they're having some interaction with a absolutely clear, legit business. Right now, they're all introduced licenses for doing this kind of operations. I would say the difference is only in, let's say, minimum capital, licensing fees, whether or not you have to have a director locally, and the rules for KYC. Because in some countries, for example, in Singapore, it's possible to do what is called the automated KYC, which is very simple, but at the same time very technologically driven and very cutting edge technology can be used there. For example, liveness detection. and so for the user it's good because it's easy. In the UK, the regulation is, I would say, the best one because it doesn't say even anything about the specific technology that you have to use. It just says you can use any technology that is reasonably good for the purposes of identifying the person. And this is, I think, fantastic approach. Very, very, very good. Australia, the problem with Australia until recently was that they have a very outdated provision for, I don't know why they were having this, but they were saying that if you collect a copy of the document, then you need to verify a person against two independent databases, which is okay for Australia. If you have a person in Australia, yes, you have these two independent databases. But if, for example, you have an Australian business working with, I don't know, some Asian country, Vietnam, for example, the Vietnamese customers will probably not be able to show any track in two databases because there are no databases in Vietnam. At least I'm not sure about maybe zero databases, but maybe they have one database, but not two databases, definitely. And so when we had these discussions with compliance officers of one of Australian financial company, they were saying, okay, can you just show that you have at least two databases in Australia? We are fine if you will not check the persons from Vietnam against the Vietnamese databases, but please, at least with the customers in Australia, please do it. So you can see how still how Stone Age this approach is. So that's Australia, but they actually they abolished this requirement because of COVID, and now it's not necessary to check the person against two databases. But it's just an approach. It's just an example how it can happen when a company, let's say country is very technologically driven, very modern. At the same time, they have for some reason a very outdated requirements of the KYC process. About the EU is so much different. I mean, there are different countries in the EU. For example, let's say Malta provides very liberal approach to financial businesses, and many companies had and have licenses in Malta. For example, Binance is one of these companies. Now they are also having other licenses. And on the other hand, let's say there is Germany, which is basically it's another realm. It's just like another empire, and they are having their own approach, which is video interview. It's a very strange thing. It's like basically you need to contact each customer through some kind of like Skype call or Zoom call, and you need to check like whether the person exists, whether the person knows who he is, or whatever psychological questions. And so this takes the cost of this verification just to the moon. And I mean, okay, German market can be okay with this because Germans are very rich people, and so they can basically pay for this. Obviously, the German customers pay for this. It's not the German business. German customers are paying for this verification. And so because of that, they have their own identity verification companies. There are like several of them, such as, for example, ID Now, WebID. So basically, these are the companies that are sitting on this specific approach, video interview. And this approach you cannot put anywhere else. We had a case with a German bank who wanted to work with the Japanese people, and the problem they had was basically how to do a video interview with a German operator when you have a Japanese customer who is like on another side of the earth, who is not speaking German and sometimes not speaking English, and who is not even like doesn't even understand this approach that you need to call someone to wait in the queue, electronic queue, etc., etc. So it's just completely different story. So that's how it works in the European Union. So countries are very much different, and they offer different approaches. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's any any chance of harmonization here? I mean, is there any chance that there will ever be some kind of a global standard? I hesitate to say standard, but some kind of a global approach for these things, or are we always going to have very different local ways of handling these regulatory aspects?
I think there is a good chance for having this in the future, and I believe that this will be what is now called the self-sovereign identity verification systems.
Mm-hmm.
Many countries right now are working on issuing what is called the electronic ID, and this is like a main strategy right now in the European Union, for example, but also the Emirates are doing this, the US are also thinking about this, Canada, some of the provinces. In France, a very funny situation. They are working on it, but the problem right now they are having is that the technological platform that they are using for electronic ID allows only 30 symbols. And some of the names in some of the provinces of France exceeds this amount. So they need to think about reworking this approach. But in any case, this is probably what will be the next step. And the idea of this electronic IDs will be that it will not be like the piece of plastic in your pocket. It will be a token that will be generated each time by the electronic, let's say, service that will be managed by the government. And this token will be going through your wallet on your smartphone. And this basically token will be verified each time by the specific company in which you're trying to onboard. And so this will be like the absolutely another approach. And a good thing about this approach will be that you don't need to show, let's say, all the information that you can find on your plastic ID. Let's say a photo, your age or anything like that. You will check only that information that is necessary for this specific onboarding. So this means this is data minimization. You don't need, for example, let's say in a liquor store, for example, you don't need to show your name. You just need to verify your age. That's it. So it's a very interesting development that will be going forward. But we will see how it works. Obviously, the problem will be that there will be some pioneering countries, and some countries will be outdated. So it's always like that.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of things are rhyming in terms of what our guests are saying, because we had David Birch last year on the podcast talking about the identity being the new money, and making the connection between money movement and digital identity in a very kind of attractive way, I would say. And I think what we're hearing here from this kind of global regulation perspective as well is that this indeed is a trend and something that will harmonize these systems perhaps in the future.
Yeah.
So sounds like we need to have another episode on digital identity and self-sovereign identity in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Good. But hey, shifting gears a little bit as we're winding towards the end of the episode, I actually ran into an article that you wrote, Tony, on the Sumsub website, where you were talking about the non-fungible token, the world of non-fungible tokens. So everything that's been hyped a lot, especially last year, with all these digital artwork being sold as digital tokens, and people paying extravagant amounts of money for this effectively ownership certificates of digital images. And now, just a few weeks ago, we heard about the OpenSea investment that was made the OpenSea NFT marketplace owners very wealthy people. So clearly there is interest in the NFT space. And you actually raised some concerns, perhaps, when it comes to regulatory compliance and anti-money laundering procedures when it comes to non-fungible tokens and sales of non-fungible tokens on these marketplaces. So could you perhaps talk a little bit about the things you wrote about in your article?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Basically, NFT is a very interesting topic to discuss, because this is a mind-blowing approach to thinking about arts. Like we think about arts usually as something that we can, that we can touch by our hand. When we go to the museum, we mostly see either sculptures or, let's say, paintings or anything like that. Of course, I mean, this approach is already different because, for example, when it comes to films, film is not something you can touch usually, especially when it comes to music. Music is something that you can just hear. You don't see it, and so on and so forth. So NFT is specifically, it's just like by idea, it's something that you cannot touch. It's just something that exists in another realm, and you can own it without touching it ever, and you can own it without, like, and the good thing is about this NFT things is that you own it, because you own the token that is minted together with this art piece. And this approach basically, um, I mean, you can copy this image, for example, but at the same time you will not own it without this token. So the idea is that you can sell it only together, like the original image and the token behind this. I mean, it sounds very, very complicated, but at the same time, right now, many people are making a lot of money out of this. And the marketplaces, I mean, this is the very good way right now to earn money. Like you can mint like an NFT and then sell it and you can get like 400% of let's say of earning. It's fantastic amount of money that you will never get in any other areas of business right now. So the problem with all of these NFTs market is that when it comes to traditional art industry, they are all right now doing KYC, at least since 2018 or something. Sotheby's and Christie's, they all do KYC, and so in most cases you will never be able to buy or sell anything without disclosing yourself. In NFT market, until now, most of the NFT platforms, they consider themselves non-regulated, and so they don't feel that they need to make sure that the person is disclosed. And this relates not only to buyers but also to sellers. And if you look into like any platforms like OpenSea or Rarible or MythMarket, whatever, they all say they give very much a lot of different caveats, saying that they're not responsible for anything except for the placement itself. And so legally that's fine, because as I say, some countries are trying to regulate this, but right now it's not everywhere. And so right now the NFT platforms still are not liable and not responsible for anything that is happening on the market. But I think that in the future there will be a very much serious request from the customers that they will need someone to make sure that the seller and the buyer are, who they are, because a very much, let's say, the easiest explanation for that will be that when you sell something on an NFT platform, you will get let's say a sum of cryptocurrency tokens, and then you need to, for example, to go into fiat, but you will not be able to go into fiat with this cryptocurrency, because you will not be able to show that the transaction that you have made was in compliance with the AML requirements. And you will be saying, I didn't know about this, and the NFT platform didn't tell me about this, but the bank or the financial institution or the cryptocurrency exchange, they will tell you, okay, it's your problem, it's your risk. And so this means that the sellers will migrate from the NFT platforms that are not having AML controls into AML platforms into NFT platforms that have AML controls. And right now we can see that because of that, we can see that there will be more and more NFT platforms that are not really just NFT platforms, that are somehow connected with the adjacent businesses. For example, with the financial institution business. For example, Binance has created its NFT marketplace. Gemini bought Nifty Gateway, as far as I remember, and now partnering with Sotheby's in a sale of fungible tokens collection. And Christie's has started its own NFT marketplace. All of them are, as you understand, they are regulated. And I think that for the NFT market, definitely this element of being regulated will be a very huge market advantage. And most of the customers will go into regulated NFT marketplaces.
Yeah. So regulation not necessarily a bad thing, I would say, because I know that we have a lot of people working in banks listening to this episode right now, and they are also thinking about this NFT questions quite a bit. The source of funds and the how actually to prove that the movement or the purchase was done with all the necessary legal elements in place. So I think it's a relief to hear that this world might be moving towards being more regulated and having better controls on the AML front.
Yeah.
Good. So Paul, would you buy an NFT based on what you just heard?
Well, so far I haven't, but I've got a teenage son who loves doing art. So there is a initial seed of a discussion around whether we could create some NFTs for him and see whether, maybe it'd be interesting and fun just to play around with it a little bit, right?
Oh, fantastic. I'm really looking forward to following up on that journey on actually creating digital art and NFTs.
Yeah.
Good. But we have a common saying here on the Fintech Daydreaming podcast, which is that time flies when you're having fun. And indeed, it's been a lot of interesting points and conversations we've had today, as promised, about regulatory technology, i.e. Regtech, and all the fantastic acronyms that comes with it. We talked about AML, CTF, KYC, NFTs, all of the usual jargon terms, and hopefully we were able to give some clarity on how all this stuff works and how it's all connected. Now, as we wind down the episode, Tony, we always want to give our guests the chance to say how can the audience be in touch and hear more about you and your work?
They can visit our website, sumsub.com, or look at my profile in LinkedIn. It's Tony Petrov. It can be easily found out. I mean, stay tuned. I think we're going to have a very interesting year with lots of developments going on in the fintech industry and in the regtech industry. So it will be very interesting to watch and participate.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And thank you again to our audience. Thank you, Tony, again for being here with us on this at this episode. And we do have the final request, as always, to people listening there. If you haven't already, please click that subscribe button on the podcast platform of your choice and leave us a review, especially if it's a 5-star review, and a comment or improvement suggestion or just a compliment, whatever you like. You know how these algorithms work. The more comments and more likes, the more people are able to find all the Fintech Daydreaming goodness that you've been listening to this week as well. Now, that being said, Paul and I will be back in 2 weeks' time with another episode of Fintech Daydreaming. But for now, this has been Fintech Daydreaming.
This is Fintech Daydreaming.